best coffee.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. President Trump yesterday, before the details of the border security deal were made public in legislative form, President Trump had this to say about what he plans to do and whether or not another partial shutdown of the government is on the table.
We'll be getting it. We'll be looking for landmines, because you could have that. You know, it's been known to happen before to people. But we have not gotten it yet. It'll be sent to us at some point, and we'll take a very serious look at it. We have a lot of things happening right now. We're building a lot of wall right now with money that we already have. And when people see what we're doing, I think they'll be very surprised. We're doing a lot of work, and we have planned to do a lot of work, but I have not seen it yet. I appreciate all the work the Republicans have done, because they're really going against a radical left. It's a radical left. And they're going against it very hard, and they're fighting. But we're in very good shape, and we're going to take a look at it when it comes. I don't want to see a shutdown. Shutdown would be a terrible thing.
National Review opining Republicans are stuck with a lousy deal. If it's a disappointing state of affairs, a product of poor choices by Trump and congressional Republicans. It was malpractice not to get more funding for a border barrier out of Congress when it was held by Republicans. Pretty straightforward. Though the National Review points out rightly that the Democrats might have filibustered any deal they didn't like, so it was no fait accompli, but it still was much more advantageous with that distribution of power. And so I would add that deleveraging by opening up the small portion of the government that was temporarily shut down or led him to this place as well. And what's the place? You're going to get some fencing, sort of like almost like steel bollards and like a trellis type barrier in the Rio Grande Valley.
And it's going to be harder to climb than Mount Everest.
We're building as we speak in the most desperately needed areas. And it's a big wall. It's a strong wall. It's a wall that people aren't going through very easy. They're going to have to be in extremely good shape to get over this one. They would be able to climb Mount Everest a lot easier, I think.
I don't know. I'd have to put that to Sir Edmund Hillary. But here's the thing. 1,200 new CPB agents, 1,200 more. No new ICE. Money for foreign health assistance, humanitarian aid, some aid to deal with the opioid crisis, and technology deployment at the border as well. Foreign aid, 4X the amount of money allocated for border barrier funding, $5.3 billion for the countries combined, for the countries of Ukraine, Israel, and Jordan. So is this a deal that Trump loyalists just need to swallow hard and accept, forget keeping score right now, win or loss, and think about the long game, which is 2020? We'll put that to our friend Sean Davis, co-founder of TheFederalist.com, who joins us now. Sean, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So what about it? Where do you come down on what we know about what is heading to what will likely head to the president's desk?
Well, I think everyone learned a valuable lesson in watching how this whole thing played out in Congress. So I personally don't think it should be viewed as, oh, this was a win for Trump or a loss for Trump. Trump. This wasn't really about him. This is about what Congress does. And just like we saw with Obamacare repeal, where Republicans had promised for years and years, if you just give us the House, in the Senate, in the White House, this is the first thing we're going to do. And what we learned is that in the Senate particularly, Republicans didn't really want to repeal Obamacare. They had just used that rhetoric to get themselves elected, to get more power to do other things. And the immigration border security debate has really been a replay of that exact same thing, where they promised to do that, they promised to do it. Well, you know what, they had majorities in Congress to do this. They could have done it. They didn't do it, and the reason they didn't do it is because they don't want to do it. So I look at the whole thing not through the lens of is this good for Republicans or bad for Trump or good for Democrats, but is this good for the American public? Is it good for national sovereignty and national security? And I think, no, it's not at all. I think the whole thing's a farce.
What about a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers? Is that got lost in the conversation?
I think that's all part of the conversation. I don't think it is outside of the realm of possibility that Republicans or even Trump would agree to that. But you can't, you don't really want to talk about if you have a big leak in your plumbing in your home. The first thing you need to do before you think about what should I do with all this water in the house is what do I need to do to make sure water stops flooding into the house. And after that's done and after you know your leak's been taken care of, then you can start discussing, okay, what's the best way to take care of what's already in the house now? I can't reverse time and deal with that, so how do I address it now? I feel like that's how you need to address the immigration debate. Until you plug the holes in the border, until you stop illegal immigrants from amassing and pouring over the borders, you've got to stop that before you start saying, well, who should get citizenship or not? You have to secure the border. That has to be the first thing you do.
But aren't we in a situation, though, and President Trump specifically in the situation where, look, even if I got everything I asked for, that's not going to end the conversation about immigration to the point you were just making. All of these other issues that are all kind of under the umbrella of immigration policy, they would continue to be hotly discussed and debated. It's going to be an important issue again in 2020. So why not sort of end this chapter in the long-term battle and focus on things that really are marginalizing the left right now, like, for example, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's ravings?
Oh, I think that's a fair point, and I think that's probably where Trump will end up. It wouldn't surprise me to see him sign it and claim victory and then maybe still declare a national emergency to unfreeze some other funds that he can use for border security. He may well veto it knowing that Congress is going to override him, and in that way that it has the effect of putting that particular debate on the back burner for a little while without Trump having to get his hands dirty by approving it. And I completely agree. The only thing Democrats and the left have to do to beat Trump and Republicans is not be insane. That's all they have to do to win in 2020.
Can't do it.
And as we've watched... Go ahead.
No, I'd say they can't do it. Bridge too far. Not going to happen.
Yeah, so you see Ilhan Omar, you see Rashid Tlaib, you see these just raging anti-Semites in Congress. You see the lefty environmental, not even socialist, almost communist kooks like Ocasio-Cortez just going absolutely nuts, saying that their goal here is to ban cars and planes and, quote, they need to ban farting cows, which is actually a phrase that ended up on Ocasio-Cortez's official white paper summary of her Green New Deal.
Did it really?
The thing is so absurd. It's so bad for Democrats. I have no problem with Republicans running against that and making Democrats own that nonsense for the next year and a half.
Well, then what do you think of Mitch McConnell, though, calling it to the Senate floor? Like, let's take a vote on it. Let's see where you stand on this Green New Deal.
I think it's great. That is, it's not as revolutionary or in your face as I think a lot of people have said. That's a very common election year or election season tactic where you take the other side's most ridiculous plans, you put it into legislative language, and you make them vote on it. But I love the idea. Put all of these Democrat, senator, or presidential candidates who endorsed that absurd Green New Deal on the record for voting for ending cars and ending plane travel and requiring high-speed rail and getting rid of those just awful, awful farting cows.
I mean, how do you, even the people we're supposed to take seriously, the senators running for president on the Dem side. I mean, you got Elizabeth Warren lying about being an Indian. You got Cory Booker having an imaginary friend. And then Kamala Harris yesterday, or this week, she lied about when she was smoking dope, the music she was listening to in college. I mean, it's all just sort of manufactured, woozy dream business on the left. And so where do they come up with somebody who will be taken seriously by, anybody that's not wearing a P hat?
Well, yeah, that's the challenge for Democrats, is that their base has gotten so crazy, so increasingly leftist and socialist, that you almost wonder if someone who can get elected by normal people can even make it out of a Democrat primary. And Democrats actually have a similar problem in 2020 to what Republicans had in 2016, which is it's just a clown car of candidates. Republicans at least had an instant front runner the second he announced in Donald Trump. Once he was in, he was sucking up all the oxygen. He was the main guy the whole time. He won the primary, won the general. You don't really have that particular dynamic with the Democrats this year because there is no obvious front runner. And so it's going to create a really, really interesting dynamic where a bunch of them are trying to vie for leftist progressive support, which may box them out once the general comes along from getting any sort of moderate or independent support.
He is Sean Davis. He's the co-founder of The Federalist, thefederalist.com. Sean, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
You too.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here